So do we have any questions from the audience, or if not, I have a lot of questions. Okay, we have a question for Rick.
Yes, Rick, very impressive results. Great to see little improvements there, and always appreciate seeing those end users in that. The question I have from when you implement, so you got a lot of new data in that. Your engineers that were able to come up with these kind of great innovations and new ideas for improvements in that, was it a combination of some new analytics that they got to see? Was it looking at the data, a combination of both? What really helped trigger with the EMI system that really helped enable getting those results?
I would say from our engineer standpoint in production, we're still on the upward slope of the learning curve. They've basically been focusing mostly on event data from the historian and also continuous historian data. The graph I showed, milling time, they're getting information from that. I'm very much interested in Seek's product and the analytics. I think we're at a phase at Jost where we're ready to start looking at how analytics can help quantify that information. As we've been growing, you can understand we've got a lot of young engineers. We hire a lot of folks out of school. So their exposure to things like the historian and trend packages and trying to analyze multiple trends on a piece of machinery to understand what that machine is doing is very limited. So whatever we can do to kind of compile that information and make it easier for them to interpret what that means in terms of the machine is going to be helpful. So basically they're using the historian now and the batch data that they're getting. And it's fun to see they're growing. The more they use it, the more questions they have, and the more they're coming to us saying, we need some information from this process area, we need some from this process area. So it's a fun time.
So kind of your next steps are really looking at, is there additional analytics I can start adding to give more insights and more intelligence in?
Yes, obviously. We've been pretty impressed. I think one of the benefits is that our control package from the supplier that we have encompasses most all of what we needed until now, and they're continually growing that. So I hope to see that they'll have some offerings along those lines. But seeing things like Seek also are things that we're anxious to put on top of it. We're getting ready also with Henry's help to build batch on top of a lot of our processes. The third-party vendor that put in a drying and laundering system for us already had the batch built. So we're using that to learn batch and to learn how to use the data, how to generate the data.
Okay, do we have some more questions? Okay, great.
This kind of leads on to the same thing, and I'm not setting up for a sales pitch from Seek, so I don't know whether this goes to Brandon or John. Brandon, you said you have, an OSI installation. What is it you're looking for above and beyond that as far as your data information that Seek is bringing for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for us, we have the OSIsoft Historian, and it helps us visualize the data. We've got actually an enterprise agreement with OSIsoft, and we've had that for several years. So we do have CoreSite and AF and all the, I don't know how familiar people are with all that stuff, but we have all that running. What Seek is able to do for us is some of the visual analytics. We can't, when we have other analytics systems running at our company, we need to do analytics. We've got teams dedicated to that. But these projects are complex. These projects can take days sometimes for an engineer to get the results they need. And we're always looking for ways to get that. I mean, everybody wants their information faster. And so there's two aspects, at least for me immediately seeing, is that one, we can get that information, immediately group it, and see what's going on. When you run something in MATLAB or some other program outside of OSIsoft, when you pull in that data, it's hard to adjust the parameters without understanding what's going on. And Seek, when we run some analytics, we can immediately see how that looks within our process, what's going on, and then we can also visualize it. And bring in data from other sources that and visualize it together. We can put that data into Pi, but sometimes we don't want to duplicate that.
Okay, I think we have another question. Could you maybe stand up so we can
Sure.
see you?
Hi, I'm Rob Burnett from GE Transportation. My question really is, there's a lot of different analytics platforms out there in the marketplace. Click, Spotfire, you can name 100 of them. What really differentiates Seek? So maybe John can take that one, and then maybe Brandon can also explain kind of when you were going through your technical evaluation of solutions, what led you to choose Seek?
Great, thanks. First of all, just some quick background. I'm a co-founder at Seek, and before that, I was actually at OSIsoft for a long time, and I was a VP of engineering and actually the dev lead on the Pi server as well. So I've got a lot of background, working with this data, and Seek was motivated by just people like yourself saying, we know the answer's in that data. It's just too hard. It just takes too long to get it out. So we kind of sat down and take on that problem. And so how do we differentiate from the analytics and things like that? Well, we're really big focus on manufacturing data, which is characterized by a lot of this time series data, these signals that have data quality issues and dropouts, and hard to find the context of that data. And this is all obvious, but if I get a temperature, it's kind of meaningless unless I know where that temperature came from and what you're doing with that piece of equipment. So that context, or the BI guys would call that dimensional data. So we're really big focus on being able to add those dimensions. And in the case of Iberdrola, that dimension was, hey, that little bit of time, that 5 minutes of time when curtailment ended until we're back up, that's that's dimensional data, that's a context. We can use various analytics. We got a handful of different analytics, we'll be adding more, that can reach into your data and get that contextual data. Now you can start viewing your data, as a function of a startup, or as a function of a product, or a phase I'm in, or I'm 80% load, whatever that dimensional data that you want that to be. Then furthermore, we can do some analytics or aggregations and things that will actually get that data in a shape that can be fed into these wonderful tools like Tableau and Click, and those things are awesome, and they're part of the arsenal, part of your whole toolkit to go after tough problems. Brandon happened to get it into Excel and Power BI and pivot tables and things like that. Those are great tools, and we actually enable those things quite a bit.
Yeah, sure. We're looking to see what we can do. We have a lot of Tableau and Spotfire, and I think those types of tools we've looked at as things for the business, dealing with relational data. We're looking for something that could help us on the operations side with our process data. We also want to see what's going on and enable our engineers in the same way that the OSIsoft tools and the process historian has helped Rick and Jost. We want a tool on top of our data that can be used by our performance reporting engineers and by our technical division and reporting teams to quickly analyze our process data and get feedback quickly on what's important in our processes. Seek's been super helpful in helping us figure out how we isolate these. It's been a short learning curve, and it's really, there's a limited number of companies out there that are doing what Seek's doing, so it was worthwhile for us to evaluate it.
Okay, I think we have another question, Joe.
Question for Mike. As you move to work with customers on integration of not just their automation, but into the information space with EMI and analytics and all that, how is your processes changing? How are your skill sets changing as an organization? What's different as you look into the future as this becomes a key part of the value add?
That's a good question. It's a tough question. Obviously, just hiring employees with strong computer skills is probably the most important thing that we feel we can do. So when we're looking at bringing on new people, the workforce coming right out of college, those students or new grads bring just a great amount of experience and thought, just the way they think and the way they approach things. So that certainly is important.
Does your interaction change more with the customer in a different way than your processes change in the design of these systems?
Yes, in a way. I mean, we do try to find how they're going to benefit from the data. Try to ask those questions up front. And yes, so sorry.
What about implementation times? While you still have the mic, why don't you talk about like how fast the project was, like what it took from inception to completion? Maybe everybody could answer that because it might be pretty interesting.
Well, I'm not sure how much time Rick spent ahead of the curve before we got there, trying to convince management that it was the right thing to do. But once we were involved, it was I would say just several months from the time he said, "Here's what we need." We came out of sort of analyzed what was going on in the plant, really focused on what was out there in the network and where their bottlenecks were for the data. From that point, once we said, go ahead and let's make these changes, because they needed to implement the project with minimal amount of downtime, it was a bit of a slow process trying to make the changes to the infrastructure and reuse as much possible infrastructure. So that might have taken several months to get that, physically make those changes.
Yeah, that's a good estimation. I think we did spend probably a couple of months ahead of time just kind of trying to help define what we had and where we wanted to go before we got together or as we got together with Canada. So yeah, I think overall the implementation of the majority of the project probably took us 6 to 8 months. And again, we're still continuing on. One of the real positive things that McHenry brought to the table and we asked them for was to be our teacher, our mentor, for us to learn how to develop the systems down the road.
What about the Iberdrola?
Yeah, actually, we threw up a virtual machine in our network, and it's we installed Seek. It took probably a few hours before everything was indexed and ready to go, and we were able to start using it pretty immediately.
You want to comment, John?
Yeah, so we have a philosophy in our product and our software is no configuration. We won't be able to do that forever, but really pushing that whole concept. And everybody that's put in the infrastructure, the OSIsoft Pi infrastructure, or the other historians out there, you got a big investment. You did a lot of organization of data already, and we just leverage that. As Brandon said, we don't grab a bunch of data and move it to a data lake or things like that. These historians are wonderful at serving up data, and as well as the relational databases and things like that. So we leverage all that existing configuration. So our installations take a few minutes. Then what we do is we reach in and index the data about that data. We do have a context database, so we index that metadata, tag names, descriptions, asset names, things like that. And then you just start working with the data, and you just get your thought process going. And instead of popping into configuration mode, just start interacting with the data and defining interesting sections you want us to pull out and isolate, so you can go dig into it. So you're up and running in probably half an hour to an hour with Seek. I think Brandon took him about 2-3 hours to become an expert. He's probably one of the biggest experts on Seek outside of Seek now. And I think at the end you're doing that business case, which is very valuable. It's less than 15 minutes, I think, from kind of start to end on that. So it's pretty quick to get going.
Okay, are there any more questions? We have one over here.
I'm Rafael Zanini from Cantech. My question is to Rick and Brandon. I see that you can really use your analytics and all the historical data that you have for focusing on quality issues and production issues, really at the operator level. So how do you think that EMI solutions can actually bring more business transparency and value to the whole management and executive levels? So how can it actually drives innovation and bring more business insights into the whole process, not only for the operational level?
I'm going to take that to begin with. I talked about our revenue stuff. We are very much, we're not a company that sends out 100,000-pound shipments of chemicals. We make much more smaller shipments. Oftentimes our customers will take a pallet of material or a couple pallets of material. So as a result, we campaign products on our lines a lot. We'll change products a few times a year, if not much more frequently than that. So that has its own set of problems for our customer service and our production scheduling people. We're on the forefront of being able to use the manufacturing intelligence for our production scheduling people and our customer service people even to talk to customers and to kind of give them a better idea of when they could expect a chemical for them to be scheduled into production. So that's kind of our next step from a management perspective. We've shown little examples of how we can show machinery utilization for the production managers, and that goes up the chain even to the owner, where he can see how well are his production managers utilizing their equipment, and how well it's paying back his investment.
Brandon?
Yeah, well, for us, it's actually, I'm pretty excited about that types of area. As you saw from the presentation, one of the first areas we were able to focus on was loss generation, which is a key business driver, which we can report up to management. But the other things that I'm excited to look at when I get back to the office and work with some of the rest of our team for is we've already demonstrated how to isolate and track how many times wind farms were curtailed. We want to drill that down to the turbine level. How many times were these turbines curtailed? And start to look at the effect that has on the turbine operation. And it's quick with Seek for us to be able to isolate the ups and downs of those turbines and then see, is it taking certain turbines longer to ramp back up to full production? And those types of insights are the things that we're hoping to get with EMI and hoping to look more at, where in the past it's been much larger projects, and now it's something we can put together and sum up and present to management within days rather than months.
Anybody want to add to that? John or Mike?
I'll just kind of philosophically, if you're in the manufacturing business, your manufacturing data is business data. It's got an impedance mismatch with all those systems that, the dashboards and all those business systems that, tend to report that and things like that. And so it's not hard to overcome those. The concepts are easy. It's kind of hard to do that at scale, do it reliably, and things like that. And that's basically an area of our focus. And so what do you need to do? Add the context to it. You report production by shift, by product, by whatever. Add that context or that dimensional data to it, because that's what those BI tools call it. Do the proper aggregation of the data, because you're not going to bring a temperature signal up there, or a flow meter signal up there. You got to put it into business terms. Brandon's just put it into business terms of dollars, which is really nice, huh? And so you just need to pick tools to help you do that, move that data along, and get it up into the business.
Did you want to comment, Mike?
No, I think typically my experience is more working with the process engineer and the production folks and helping them to reap the benefits and the operational improvements. Typically we see them reporting back to management in their own way, converting those efficiencies into the dollar savings.
Yeah. So did you get involved in what the measurements were going to be, and how do they track it?
Well, it's different for every customer. We find ourselves trying to just get more data in the historian,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really the secret. I think is instead of just getting one process point, maybe about a flow. What is your set point? What are the other factors that were creating the demand, and getting all that into the database.
Okay, well, I think we have another question up front here. Could you stand up?
And this one is for Rick, more for you. And then I think I heard the same question a little bit, but I'm going to ask differently, that you had a flat network, one infrastructure, and you moved into a modernized way, separated out supervisor network and the control network and things like that. Did you also upgraded your infrastructure where all your controls are sending more data? Did you upgraded all the network piece, infrastructure piece only, or you also upgraded all the components for your chemical line? So now you are collecting more data, and that is helping you out. And during this time when you are changing, did you have to bring the whole line down? I don't know whether, you had a 7/24 operation, and how long that thing took the process-wise. I heard earlier that you mentioned it's about 3 to 4 month process, but I wonder how much is the downtime and scheduling?
That's a very good question. We did not have as good of infrastructure as we needed to go to the future. We had a flat network architecture from the standpoint that we had one single server handling our historian and our data collection systems. We had pretty well set up the control systems in the individual process areas on PLCs and a lot of the Rockwell equipment. We actually had at the start of, I should say the start, we had major process network switches out in the plant. We did have to upgrade some of those to Cisco switches so that we could more easily set up the VLANs. But they were, for instance, the one switch probably has the most traffic on the most process areas, has about 4 process areas on it. We were able to hit a time. Fortunately, we have audits every so often from customers. We were able to hit an audit time. It took us about 2 hours to pull a switch, put another one in, so it didn't impact our downtime. So those major process switches we had to upgrade, and we completed all that. But then also down in the process areas where each PLC controller was, we needed the VLANs down there for supervisory level and a process level. We had been putting managed switches in those points, and we had to make decisions on each one as to, and was basically based on how much I/O do we have in that area and what type of I/O. Would it create a lot of multicast traffic? So in those individual process areas where we had PLCs, in some cases we had to change the network switches so we had something capable of running a VLAN. And in some cases we just kept the network switch for the process and added another network switch for the control, for the I/O system network. So we were able to minimize downtime. I don't know that we really caused any downtime with it. But yes, we had to add some individual switches at the process level, and then at the major level, the aggregating switches, we had to change out probably 2/3 of those, I guess. Those were the ones that I wished we had kind of set a specification for to begin with. Because those are the ones that, as a control systems engineers, we're not experts in IT and networking and switches and VLANs, so we need all the help we can get in managing those and understanding what's going on.
Anybody want to add anything? We have another question up front. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear me. So my question is, now that you've gone through this process of collecting better data that helps you manage your processes better, all of you actually, what are some of the criteria that come to mind when you think of doing additional analytics? As many have pointed out, there are hundreds of packages, and nobody has the time to scour every one of them. So when you think about improving your level of analytics, what are some of the primary constraints you are working under, and what are the main criteria you're looking for?
That's a very good question. I think one of the very powerful things about manufacturing intelligence is the historian system. The historian is something that's fairly easily implemented in a process structure, and it's fairly easily used looking at trend packages and data. I think you get a little more complicated when you start, and you can use that to analyze machinery performance. To analyze process performance, I think you need to combine that with event-based data. This particular machine was started this time, the operator made this change at this time to this, and to take that information and combine it, then you get to the point where you can start doing some, say, batch analysis and golden batch things. The Rockwell tools that we have are already built to do that and standardized. We've just started down that road. We're really looking forward to it. But I think a combination of that event type based data and batch data, of course, has its own methodology that's pretty standardized too. But being able to aggregate that data together with continuous process data to develop, for instance, one of our liquid batches as a golden batch, and a comparison of that data to the way an operator's operate something, and even on top of that, to give an operator an alert to say, we have these 5 parameters that's running these batch. These 2 parameters are a little bit out of whack. They're not quite at optimum. Adjust these. And I think that would be very powerful towards ensuring that we have high quality product at every pound that we produce. Does that answer your question?
Does anybody else want to comment on it?
Sure. Yeah, when we're looking at new tools, we're fairly established. I mean, not fairly established. We've been around for, depending on how you count it, 15 years, and we've got a lot of different infrastructure pieces in place. We've had the OSI system in there since 2004, and we've got other large Oracle databases, other large databases coming in from different systems. And so when we're evaluating things, we don't want a new system that's aggregating more data or another place of record. And one of the major things that I hear all the time from our VPs and from that level is that it needs to be simple for people to use. We don't want to make the analytics more complex. We don't want to have to pull more data. So one of the key evaluation points for us was to make sure that if we're bringing in anything new, it's going to make people's jobs easier rather than having them need to learn a new system to do those analytics. And the nice thing that we saw in Seek was that we don't have to duplicate any of that data. It's quick to put in, quick to test out, and we're not forcing people to use it. We're just showing them the functionality, making it available. And like I said, we've only had it for a few months, so we're slowly seeing. But people are excited about what they can do, and we're looking forward to seeing them.
Any other comments? Anybody? No. We do have another question, I think, somewhere. Do we?
Yeah, this is for Brandon. Two-part question. First, how many different data sources are you pulling from? I know you're pulling from Pi, and I was wondering if there's some other ones. And then second, it seems that in every case, yourself and the other process engineers, operations people are interacting directly with the data. Was there ever any instance where you needed the assistance of programmers, data scientists, IT people, or was it something that you guys felt you could always handle on your own and would be able to do so in the future?
Okay.
Well, when I say, first off, we just put in Seek. We're looking forward to getting other data sources, especially our Oracle database. But that's John can answer maybe what the path for that is. So right now it's pretty much our Pi Historian data in there. And then as far as the analytics that we're doing and the process engineers, I like to think of everyone at our company as a data scientist. We've got people that they're either in our performance reporting group or our performance tools and analytics group, which are two teams that do a lot of research and reporting. And then these are actually, while under operations, these aren't our control system people. These are the people doing the reporting, but they understand what we need to report on and what we're looking for and what affects the turbines. And so it's a matter, like all analytics that happen at this level, it's a matter of understanding the processes, understanding what's going on, talking to the right people, figuring out what's of interest for the business and what we need to look at. Does that get at your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody want to add anything? Okay. I did have another question.
Yes, I would like to just
go ahead, Rick.
talk to that just for a moment. You talk about different data sources and talk about some of the information we're pulling. It's basically on our Ethernet network. We've also developed a Modbus network and also building an automation control network. We We have some places where we environmentally control production rooms. So we're looking to bring that building automation network, but really want to talk to the Modbus issue. We're seeing more and more equipment that we're getting in that can give us information, and our maintenance people and our operations people are interested in that. Air compressors, for one, giving us that information over Modbus. Maybe I'm a little new to the game. I'm not an old Modbus person, but it still seems like there's difficulty in getting that data from some of those type of systems to cross-platform to another system easily. Even have a little struggles with tech support people from individual equipment manufacturers being able to help our controls engineers figure out initial setups and why they're not working initially like they should. So I think there's maybe still some work to be done in terms of getting data portable across communication platforms.
Can I ask just you a quick question? What kind of devices are you guys using to access the information? Are you using like tablets or mobile devices, and where are the different devices located?
We're basically laptops for configuration things, and then basically business network desktops. We want to go to tablets, so we're a little more mobile in that information for the people in the plant. That's part of our network infrastructure growing pains. We've got to get our wireless act together. We're going down that road. We're just, I'd like to see it happen a little faster. But once we have that, yes, we plan on having tablets in the plant so that our operations people can look at things. One big example is to input raw material inventories into the system when they come in. Then a guy in the warehouse stock will have a tablet to be able to bring things in and barcode reader. So we want to get to those great technologies, but we're growing infrastructure to enable it.
What about you, Brandon?
We actually just rolled out on a separate project. We just rolled out Microsoft Surface tablets to our field, which makes it exciting to see. Hopefully in the future, Seek, but currently the Pi system data and other data out of the field.
We have another question here.
This is for Michael and John. Looking into your crystal ball, what do you see as the next big breakthrough in EMI? What's the future hold? Anything you're excited about that you see coming down the pipe that'll be excited for us end users?
Our vision is kind of 3 steps. It's investigate. That's our focus right now. And to answer the other question, we're working on that generalized SQL connector, and so we'll be able to get at any data that lives in the database shortly. That's coming really quick. So investigate. That's where we're focusing now. It's where your engineers interact and work with it. Test hypotheses real quick, sort their data, index their data, and work with it. And so we got that pretty well developed right now in a release product. Next step is monitor, because you got to be able to take what you've learned and operationalize it, plug it in so a bot is taken care of. I know you guys at Fasco do some bunch of really nice advanced control and things like that. So start doing that stuff so things are automated. It reaches out to the right person at the right time to let them know, because you can't be looking at all that stuff. And then that next step in our kind of roadmap, the big picture roadmap, is then predict, and that gets into things like machine learning, predictive analytics, which I know you guys are doing really good predictive analytics, at least in some of your processes. Just making that easier, which just means that's just a fancy word for saying cheaper. It's got to be less expensive to go do this stuff. And so, kind of our 3 steps: investigate, monitor, predict.
Probably not the right person to get a view of the future, but I will say the trend that we see is that there's just more of it going on. That a typical control system several years ago did not involve automatically a historian and an EMI system, and now this is pretty much standard operating procedure. It's just part of the deal, and we don't get blank looks from customers when we say that what. We start talking about historians and EMIs, they understand, they see the value, and they're willing to do it. So for us, that's the big change, and the trend that we see more customers like Jost who are finally serious about using the tools. Like, we've got some customers that have these tools and just have not really been that focused on implementing and using them. So the trend is more people are aware of the capabilities and the benefits and are wanting to put them to use. And that it's not a big cost. That's the other thing you said.
And just one more quick comment. You know, Rob High's talk that IBM Watson was great this morning. He talked about just amplifying, right? That's what it's really about, because you got all that information out there. Can we give you a big gain switch on there and make your people 10x more powerful? And that's really what all this stuff is about.
And it's about being able to find the right information at the right time. It is what people say, the right information, making the right decision at the right time. And that's really what all of these people are doing. I think that they're making it much easier, and the tools are getting more intuitive, wouldn't you say? So are there any other questions? If not, I just want to ask people out there, particularly the end users, to please take the survey, and if you want me to send you the link, I will, because it was a little complex. And hopefully we'll have a strategy report out shortly with some of what we consider to be best practices. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and don't forget to come to part 2, because it's going to be just as exciting as this session was. I think we had some really world-class speakers, and I'd like to give a hand to our panel and all of our speakers. Thank you very much.